Welcome back everyone, my name is Sirhan and you are sitting in my 2023 Dodge Charger Hellcat Widebody. Today I've got another modification video. I will be installing this. So this will be replacing the factory boot cover on the gear. Now the factory cover is a vinyl material. It doesn't feel that great. It has the black stitching, so I'm going to replace this with genuine leather, and this feels like really nice. As you can see, it's genuine leather. And it's got the red stitching, which is going to give it a nice contrast, and it's going to match this steering wheel that I installed. So this steering wheel, as you can see, it's carbon fiber with the red stripe at the 12 o'clock position, and it's got this really nice red stitching on it. Really like this steering wheel. I think it looks really nice on this car. And actually I do like the red stitching. It's got a kind of a nice contrast because there's a lot of white stitching around everywhere on this car, like around the dash, on the doors, and on the seats. So I think the red stitching on steering wheel does look really nice. And I'm trying to kind of blend it into the car. And I figured, well, if I replace this, it'll kind of blend in a little better. So that was kind of my thought process there. I think if you got a little bit of red stitching here, it kind of blends in with the car. So let's get right to it. Okay, so that was actually a lot easier than what I thought. I think I can just pop this right up. Okay, there we go. Let's just see what we're working here with. Okay, so that pops out quite easily. Okay, so this cover isn't very difficult to remove. It actually comes out quite easily. I went ahead and put this microfiber cloth around it just to protect the plastic, to prevent any scratches. Okay, looking underneath, I see this connection here, but I'm having a really hard time trying to disconnect this. And so I think what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to try to remove the actual gear shifter. So if you pull up on the boot, you can see there's a screw right there. So when you pull up on the boot, you can see that screw. It's right there. That looks like a T25. So that screw that holds the lever is a T25. Okay. Okay, so with that screw loosened, now I've got some more room. I can turn this around and see what I'm dealing with. Okay, so looking underneath, it looks like I just pull in on this tab here. There we go, and it's out. Okay, so I've got the shifter removed along with the cover. I'm just trying to figure out how exactly this comes off. Okay, so in order to remove this boot, just push on these tabs. Oh, there we go, and just popped right out. Lay that down very carefully. Okay, so now this is what we're working with. Oh, really nice quality. They even have this little strap, just like the factory, to secure this cable. Now to remove this, what do we do? Is it like glued on or something? I wonder if it's just held in by this screw. Okay, so it looks like this is all glued on. So I imagine that this here is also glued on, I would think. You know what, I'm just going to remove this screw, see if that helps. I wonder if I can just pull this plastic collar off. How to remove this? Like, I'm trying to figure this out as I go. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, really difficult to find any instructions online on how to remove this boot cover. Okay, so what I did, I just got a couple of small screwdrivers and I pressed in on these holes on both sides, and that released this piece from here. So basically I was pushing down on these and that released everything. So now we can, here we go. So that all comes apart like that. Okay. This here is where that screw went, that T25. All right, so I hope that makes sense to all of you guys. So in order to release this, all you had to do is get something to press down on those clamps on both sides, and that just pops right out, and you're left with this. So now coming back to our boot cover, This I can tell is glued on. Ah, okay, so they just glue it on here. So you just glue it on. Okay, gotcha. Okay, guys, I want to show you this process again because I struggled with this and I could find very little information online on how to remove this plastic collar. So if you look here on the sides, you're going to see these two openings. All you need to do is get a flat screwdriver and push in those tabs to release. So I got that one released. Now this one. And then here you go. That's how that gets removed. And your wire will go in just like that through this notch. And you really can't put this in the wrong way because this is your shifter. This is the opening for your screw, and that's going to line up with this opening right here. And so that's how that comes out. So coming back to our boot cover, I removed this plastic piece from here, and it's just held on by glue. So this is just glued on in here, and the same over here. And so coming back to our boot cover, I removed this plastic piece from here, and it's just held on by glue. So this is just glued on in here, and the same over here. Coming back to our boot cover, I want to do a final check to make sure that the new replacement is the exact same size as the factory. And I believe this is going to be a good fit. Next step would be to remove this piece from the bottom, and it's just held in by glue. So I'm just going to go around, remove this. I guess no turning back now. Okay. So there's the old one. There's the new one. Okay, so next we need to glue the new boot cover to the plastic trim that goes on the bottom, as well as the plastic collar on top. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this on. The piece with the strap to hold your wiring in goes on this side here, which is towards the engine. So I'm just going to do a rough, just a dry fit, just to get it in position, because now that I've got the red stitching, it's going to be a lot more visible, and I want to make sure that when I go to install it, that the stitching kind of lines up nicely. I don't want the stitching to kind of be pulled to one side or the other. But right now, this looks like that looks pretty good to me. And so pay attention, right? This is the correct orientation. You don't want to put this side facing you. You don't want to see all that stitching. So that goes in the back like this. And there's the loop towards the front facing the engine. So I think that's going to fit and look really good. And then this piece, this hole facing the driver, so because that only goes on one way, right? So right, okay, so make a note. That hole is supposed to face you. That's gonna go inside, and you got to get that like lined up pretty good. So basically I want the red stitching to be lined up with this hole. Okay, so I can go on to probably what I think is the most difficult part of this job, and that's gluing the new piece especially onto this plastic collar. So you want to keep in mind that this strap here will face towards the engine, and this will face towards the driver, this hole, and you're going to use this larger opening towards the top. Okay, I'm going to move on to probably the hardest part of this install, and that is gluing the new piece onto the bottom trim and this piece here, especially this one here. So the glue that I'm going to use is just some super glue. This one's Super Bond. I tried using this fabric glue, did not work very well, so that's garbage. You're going to need some sort of super glue. And keep in mind, when you go to install it, this strap will point towards the engine. So that's towards the front. This piece will be facing the driver. And when you go to install this piece, this screw will be facing you, okay? So the other thing is you want to make sure that this red stripe lines up with this hole, because you don't want to install it and then have the stripe kind of off to the side like that, right? So you want to make sure that kind of lines up with that hole. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pour some glue there, and then I'm going to slide it in and then fold it over on top, and then hold it down with some clamps. So here we go. Here goes nothing. Okay, so I'm going to spread that around. Try not to get any glue on your gloves, because last thing you want to do is get glue on your new cover. So here we go. I'm going to put that in. Just make sure that hole kind of lines up with the red stitching. Okay, so I don't want to go too high. Bring it down a bit. Okay, everything looks like it lines up. Then we're gonna just fold. I'm gonna use these clamps. And that's gonna prevent me from touching the glue, because you don't want to touch that glue and be working with the leather. So just want to make sure everything lines up. Okay, this glue is pretty strong. Okay, so that screw hole lines up really good with this red stitching, so that looks pretty good so far. Okay, and I'm just going to use these clamps, kind of hold it in place, and I think that's going to come out pretty good. Okay, then I'll just leave it alone and let that glue dry up. Okay, so this piece is gluing on really good. That super glue worked perfectly. Okay, so now I'm going to focus on the bottom trim. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm just going to put just a little bit of glue. Doesn't need much. Okay, this glue is working perfectly. It gives it a really strong hold, and it's very quick to activate. Super Bond is the brand. So I'm just going to put on a thin layer. Like, it holds it right away, which is really good. Okay, so I think the glue is all dry. Go ahead and take a look how that came out. So I think overall that's really good. I like how the red stitching kind of lines up. So that looks pretty good. Once it goes in, it's going to look pretty good. All right, so now we can go ahead and install this on the car. Okay, so I'm going to put that on. If you're wondering how to put a Hellcat into neutral, that's what this is for. So this is the neutral strap. Pull on this, and it will engage neutral. Okay, so now Okay, we've got this piece in. Now I'm going to route this wire through here, right? And these tabs need to go into those openings, and this is going to line up with that hole. This mod is a lot more work than what I bargained for. I thought this was going to be an easy install, but I think I've got that in place. So I should be able to put that screw back in. So now I should be able to put this T25 screw back in there. Okay, so now this can go back in. And this piece, remember, we just got it up by just pulling it straight up. Okay, so that's in. All we got to do now is slide it into here and screw it in place. Okay, so now... Okay, so I've put this back together. Everything's wired up. All I have to do is put this T25 screw back in. Clipped on. There we go. Perfect. I gotta say, this job was a little bit more difficult than what I thought, but I think it was well worth it, because this feels much better than the factory boot cover, and I think that little bit of red really kind of ties in the steering wheel with the red stitching. So I got some red stitching on the steering wheel. The stitching on the car is white from the factory, but I think the red stitching on the steering wheel kind of blends in a lot better now that I've got this red stitching right here on the boot cover. And here's the final product. Overall, I'm very happy with the quality of this piece. The leather, really nice quality. The red stitching, I think it's a really nice subtle touch to the interior of the Hellcat. And I think it matches the steering wheel really nicely. So overall, very happy with how this turned out. I would say this mod, it looks pretty simple and straightforward, but it was rather quite difficult, to be honest with you. I would probably rate this in terms of difficulty, maybe a 6 out of 10. I don't know if I would probably do this again. I don't think the amount of time and effort it took, I don't think quite, to me, it's not worth it. But now that I've done it, I probably won't ever do it again. But now that it's done, I can kind of enjoy it, and I think it's a really nice subtle touch. Like, it feels way better than what it was before, and that just a little bit of red stitching, I think, it just gives a nice little touch to the interior. So pretty happy with it. Okay, well, that's going to do it for this one. I'll catch you guys on the next one.